Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Abdulaziz Muhammad. Today joining me is Feroz Vahed, a local community member who has been partaking in the Itikaaf ritual for the past 14 years. So Feroz, first things first, before we jump into this, what motivates you to go back each year and have been doing so consistently and consecutively for the past 14 years?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Abdulaziz. Itikaf is an institution where one is given the opportunity to seclude himself and to build a proximity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you talk to people who have been on Hajj, you will find that they constantly tell you that they can't wait to go back. And the reason for that is because of the closeness that they share with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they're on the Holy Land. Itikaf is a similar thing that I've always come to experience, gives me the same sort of proximity that I enjoy when I'm on Hajj. In 1998, I performed my first Hajj, and it was probably the biggest milestone that I achieved in my religious journey. After Hajj, I struggled to maintain consistency in my salah. And when I was doing a lot of research, I found out about Itikaf, and I wanted to participate in this institution that was so beautiful and followed by our beloved Nabi Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I went to Itikaf with a specific intention. My intention was to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help me to maintain consistency in my salah. I went into the program with vigor and energy, full of excitement. I slept very few hours, and I was up in prayer most of the time. And there's a very beautiful story that I would love to share with you. There was a particular night that I was up for pretty much the entire day and night, and I made my sehri. I was getting ready for Fajr, but exhaustion overtook me, and I fell fast asleep. Now, when you sit in Itikaf, you'll find that there's a certain brotherhood. You know, the brothers, they understand that it's not unbecoming of someone to fall asleep, and they always look out for each other and check that everyone is awake. And that particular night, because they had seen me at Sehri, they assumed that everyone was awake and would be at Fajr. And I slept through the Salah. And when I awoken, I was really upset at myself. I was deeply saddened. And I spent that entire day crying and sobbing and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me, because here I was, the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I fell off to sleep. And it's one of the conditions of Itikaf, and I didn't know if my Itikaf was actually accepted. And while I was sitting there crying, the brother in the tent next to me, he was a Hafiz of Quran, and he heard me and he was concerned. So he came up to me and he said, "Brother, why are you crying so much?" And I said to him that I related to him the episode, and he asked me a beautiful question, and he says, "Brother, tell me, in prior years, did you cry when you missed a salah?" And I said, "No, I didn't." And he said, "Subhanallah, Allah has given you a beautiful gift." And I said, I don't understand. Please explain." And he said, "The way you feel today, the remorse you are feeling in your heart, the tears that you have shed, these are the tears that you need to feel every single time you miss a salah." And that was a beautiful gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me with in my first Itikaf. And from there, every single Itikaf that I participated in, Allah has blessed me with several gifts. And it is this that helps me to gravitate with anxiousness. I wait for Itikaf every single year to take away what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me to implement into my life in the upcoming years.
MashaAllah, I think that was beautifully said. So, Feroz, tell us about your daily activities. What do you do? What is it like to have a typical day in Itikaf in the masjid?
So in my earlier years, I typically used to spend a lot of my time in Quran Tilawa. This is the month in which we're celebrating the recitation of the Holy Quran. I used to do a lot of zikr, but I used to sleep very little. And there was a particular year, it was probably my 4th or my 5th year of Itikaf, where I became extremely sick, ill in my Itikaf. So ill that I couldn't wake up, I couldn't hold the Quran without experiencing a lot of pain. I couldn't stand for my salah. And the brothers that were with me were very concerned. So they called the doctor in to assess my condition. And the doctor realized that I had contracted shingles. And after the brothers had made mashura, they sat with me and they said, "It's admirable that you push yourself so hard, but you need to understand that making zulm on your body, hurting your body, is not advisable. Sleeping is a ibadat. Excessive sleeping in itikaf is not advised. But to help your body recover is very important. So over the years, I've developed a program for myself. One which allows me to spend sufficient time in worship and spend adequate time as well sleeping. You find like tonight is an odd night. I've already prepared myself emotionally, spiritually, to be up tonight in prayer. So on the odd nights, I will push myself a lot harder. There will be lots of Quran recital, there will be lots of zikr, there will be lots of nafils that I will perform, Salatul Tasbih being one in particular. I've also through this institution started to read a lot more Salatul Awabin, Salatul Ishraq, Salatul Duha, and these are beautiful things and gifts that you learn and you have the opportunity to practice and implement in your life through this institution. And then obviously on the even nights, I will take it a lot easier, allowing my body then to recover. But as this is the month of the celebration and recitation of the Quran, I spend most of my time in reciting the Quran.
Feroz, I must say you have a very beautiful way of putting things through. Now, we know that the world plays a huge impact, especially when you're in isolation in the masjid and in the mosque. How do you disconnect yourself and allow yourself to partake in the holy rituals and all this extra?
Brother Abdul Aziz, with great difficulty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says very beautifully in the Quran, I think it is in Surah Fatir, He says, فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا. This worldly life is there to deceive you. And believe me, when you are sitting in Itikaf, you will realize how true that really is. Because you try to escape from the world and you find that the world keeps roping you in over and over again. But the good news is, as you start to participate more in zikr, excessive meditation, tilawah of Quran, you find that in the beginning, for the first 3 or 4 days, your body goes through some sort of detox, where you will initially have a bit of a problem, but after that period, something happens. There's a transformation that takes place, and you will find that you disconnect from the world and you have a better connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's something that the mutakif, the one who is in itikaf, can relate to. Those who have been on Hajj know what this connection is all about. It's something so beautiful, and when that happens and overtakes you, your itikaf becomes something that is extraordinary.
MashaAllah, I think that is exceptionally beautiful. Now, when we look at the whole concept of itikaf, many people don't understand what itikaf is and that it's just more than spending the last 10 nights in Ramadan. Can you share your thoughts and experience with regards to the statement?
Yes, itikaf, if you look at every community, there is a obligation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on every community, every area, or every neighborhood. And if at least one person does not fulfill the masnoon, which is sunnat itikaf, in that community, then the burden is placed on every member of that community. And I think it's something that people don't tend to realize how important it is for itikaf to be performed. If nobody sits for itikaf in that area, then all the members are held accountable for neglecting a sunnah mu'akkada obligation that has been placed upon them. More over and above that, I think it's also as much as itikaf is a personal ibadah, where the mutakif spends a lot of time focusing on himself, doing lots of introspection, it's also a time where through this connection we need to remember the masses in the world and to pray for them, especially in the time that we find ourselves in now with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has overtaken the world at large. We will be spending lots of time begging and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this connection and asking Him to relieve us of this disease that has overtaken the world and other diseases as well, and calamities that the ummah at large are facing.
Feroz, spending 14 years in the masjid must have created some sort of connection with you. In the tough times that you did mention, how do you find it possible to deal with the masjid being closed, and how would you relate to something like this?
It's a very difficult thing. Excuse me. We build a certain connection with the masjid when you are in itikaf. And this year circumstances are different. I'm however hopeful despite the legislations that have been placed on the various masajid, the places of worship, I'm hopeful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be extra merciful. He is infinite in His mercy. And inshallah, through that, He will afford every mutakif, wherever they may be, He will still accept their itikaf. He will make it possible for them to enjoy it in the same way that they enjoyed it while they were in the masjid. And He will make it possible. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will still accept their du'as.
I mean, most definitely, Feroz. Before we'd like to close, we'd just like to ask you that is there anything before we partake that you'd like to share with the listeners going forward? Maybe a word of advice, and perhaps to encourage people to join who haven't been able to partake in this noble cause, to join and feel what's it like to be in Itikaf.
The transformation that Itikaf has had on my life, the humility that I experience, the appreciation that I have. Understand that when you are in Itikaf, you are sitting in a room that is the size of a mattress. When you leave the masjid, you have such a longing for that small little place that you've become so accustomed to and you have been so content with, that when you return to your home and you look around at the luxuries that you have, the size of your home, the cars, all the beauties that Allah, beautiful things that Allah has gifted you with, you have a greater appreciation for it. And this is one of the most beautiful things that Itikaf allows. It allows the mutakif to realize what the huge role that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala plays in our daily lives, to have that appreciation, that compassion as well for the poor, the needy, and for humankind, for mankind at large. And even if the listeners and the viewers out there have the opportunity to even experience a few hours or a few days, nawaitu nafil itikaf, inshallah, if you make that dua and you spend a few hours, I'm sure Allah in His infinite mercy during these last 10 days of Ramadan will accept that from you. And I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts the duas of all the mutakifs that will be in itikaf, both the men and the women, wherever they may be. Inshallah, He will accept it and He will bless us all unconditionally with His love. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen.
Ameen, Feroz. I think that was a fantastic way. I must say it's a rather unique perspective and something that was rather touching, and we hope that after hearing this, all the listeners and the viewers going forward can form some sort of attachment to this beautiful and noble ritual that takes place in the last 10 nights. I thank you for joining us, and inshallah we hope that this year Allah makes your itikaf pleasure, acceptance, and one that can be memorable.
Ameen. Rabbal Alameen. Barakallah. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you so much, guys. Assalamu alaikum.